You probably think winemaking is all about rolling green hills, romantic sunsets, and people in straw hats swirling glasses while talking about notes of blackberry. Yeah, that's part of the picture, but the real story, it's way more practical, sometimes messy, and surprisingly satisfying to watch unfold. And today we're going from grape to glass, the factory way. Before a single drop of wine swirls in a glass, there's a year-long process unfolding in the vineyard, and it's anything but casual. Grapes aren't simply planted and left to grow. They're treated like high-maintenance VIPs with a full-time care team. Farmers and vineyard workers spend the entire year making sure each vine gets exactly what it needs. Weeds are kept under control so they don't steal nutrients. Fertilizers are applied with the precision of a calendar reminder. Irrigation is measured so the soil is never too dry or too wet. And there's a constant watch for pests hoping to turn the vineyard into their personal buffet. Every season is monitored like clockwork. Sunlight, rainfall, temperature, and wind patterns are tracked with the same attention a pilot gives a flight path. A healthy vine will be encouraged to keep thriving, while one under stress gets exactly the right intervention, whether that's adjusting water flow, trimming excess growth, or changing feeding schedules. Here's the counterintuitive part. Even when the vines are thriving and heavy with grapes, farmers will deliberately remove some of them. This step, called thinning, might look wasteful to an outsider. It's like baking dozens of cookies after weeks of effort, only to throw half away. But the reason is simple. Fewer grapes mean each one gets more nutrients and sugar, resulting in fruit that's richer, juicier, and far more concentrated in flavor. Think of it as decluttering a crowded closet. Once you clear out what you don't need, the best pieces finally get the spotlight. By late summer, the results are on full display. Neat rows stretch into the horizon, vines heavy with vibrant leaves that shimmer in the sunlight. Tucked beneath are clusters of grapes slowly shifting from pale green to deep ruby or dark purple, the air around them carrying a faint sweetness that hints at the ripeness to come. Farmers patrol these rows like guardians, stopping to test grapes by rolling them between their fingers, checking firmness, and tasting for that delicate balance between sweetness and acidity. Pick them too early and the wine will taste thin and sharp. Wait too long, and you risk losing that fresh, bright character to overripeness. Or worse, an unexpected change in weather could ruin the entire crop. In winemaking, timing is everything. One day, too soon or too late can alter the character of an entire vintage. That's why, when the perfect moment finally arrives, all the patience, precision, and care of the year lead to a single decisive move. The harvest begins, and the race to capture that ideal ripeness is officially on. When the timing is finally right, everything in the vineyard shifts into high gear. Grapes don't wait. They're at their peak for only a short window, and missing it can mean the difference between a wine that sings and one that just exists. Some vineyards still stick to the traditional hand-picking approach. Picture teams of workers moving methodically down the rows, clippers in hand, snipping clusters with practiced precision and gently placing them into crates. It's slow, back-breaking work under the sun, but it's also intimate. Every bunch gets a moment of human attention. It's the kind of harvest you might see in a postcard, romantic and old-fashioned, but when you've got acres upon acres to cover, efficiency takes a hit. That's where modern machinery steps in. In the large-scale production, the true workhorse of harvest season is the grape harvesting machine, a tall, narrow vehicle designed to straddle the vine rows like it owns the place. Instead of cutting the grapes, it uses a controlled shaking motion, just enough to loosen the ripe clusters without damaging the vine. The unripe grapes cling on for dear life, waiting for their turn in a few days' time. It's a bit like sending out a polite but firm invitation. If you're ready, come along. If not, stay put. And the ripe grapes gladly RSVP yes, tumbling down into collection trays. The sound is surprisingly soothing, a soft, steady patter, like a gentle summer rain hitting an empty roof. As the machine makes its way down the row, the air behind it fills with the scent of harvest. Sweet, heady aromas from the fruit mingle with the earthy smell of warm soil and the faint, dry note of crushed leaves. In that moment, the vineyard feels alive, buzzing with both nature and machinery, working in perfect sync. Once the bins are brimming, there's no time to linger. Trucks are waiting to whisk the grapes straight to the factory. The race against the clock is real. The goal is to get them processed while they're still bursting with freshness, before even a hint of fermentation can start in the back of a truck. It's a swift, decisive move from vine to machine to road, setting the stage for everything that comes next. When the trucks roll up to the unloading bays, that's the moment the vineyard hands the job over to the factory. The grapes are tipped out in a steady cascade and fed onto long conveyor belts, beginning their first big audition. This is where the sorting begins, a tag team effort between cutting-edge machines and the human eye. Optical sorters scan for size, color, and blemishes with ruthless efficiency, while a row of workers stands by to flick out anything that doesn't make the cut, Wrinkled grapes, stray leaves, or a stubborn bit of vine, all gone. The mission is clear. Only the most flawless grapes make it to the next stage. From there, the chosen ones head for their first spa treatment. It's not just a quick splash under a hose. They're lowered into water baths, gently rotated to wash away dust, bits of soil, and anything else that might have hitched a ride from the vineyard. The soak does more than clean. It plumps the grapes slightly, giving them a fresher, juicier texture. Fresh water keeps circulating the whole time so the bath stays pristine, never turning into some murky grape soup. By the end, they're spotless, refreshed, and ready for the real work to begin. Once the grapes are cleaned and gleaming, they roll toward the crusher, and despite the name, this isn't some violent metal grinder tearing them apart. It's more like a firm handshake that breaks the skin just enough for the juice to escape, while keeping the seeds and most of the skins intact. The result is a rich mixture of juice, skins, and seeds known as the must, and it's the true starting point of winemaking. But the must doesn't just sit there idly. Throughout the day, it's carefully mixed or turned, so every part of it gets evenly soaked. Think of it like marinating a steak or tossing a salad. You don't just let the flavors pool in one corner, you make sure every bit gets coated. This constant mixing draws out the deep flavors, vibrant colors, and aromatic compounds from the grape skins, setting the stage for a richer wine. When the soaking has done its job, the moment comes to separate the liquid from the solids. The must is gently transferred into the press, which applies steady, controlled pressure to squeeze the juice through fine screens, leaving the skins and seeds behind. Nothing goes to waste here. Those leftover solids often get a second life as grapeseed oil, livestock feed, or even compost for the vineyards. The freshly pressed juice is then passed through filters, removing the tiniest particles and leaving behind a crystal clear liquid. At this point, it's still just grape juice, sweet, fragrant, and alcohol-free. But its journey is far from over, and the real transformation is only just beginning. This is the moment when the grape juice finally begins its transformation into wine. Once it leaves the press, the liquid is poured into large fermentation vessels, sometimes gleaming stainless steel tanks, other times traditional oak barrels. The oak isn't just there for tradition's sake, it slowly imparts subtle notes that can range from soft vanilla to warm spice, adding depth you'd never get from steel alone. Then comes the catalyst, yeast. Whether it's naturally clinging to the grapes or carefully selected and added by the winemaker, it gets straight to work, feeding on the sugars in the juice and converting them into alcohol. As it does, it also releases carbon dioxide, which bubbles through the liquid, gently mixing it and helping to regulate temperature. This stage is anything but quick. Depending on the style of wine, fermentation can stretch from a few weeks to several months. Throughout that time, the winemakers are constantly checking sugar levels, acidity, and overall flavor development with the precision of a watchmaker. Some wines get stirred during this process to extract more flavor and texture, while others are left untouched, allowing nature to take its course. Step inside a fermentation room, and it's like stepping into a different world. The air is heavy with the scent of ripe fruit, warm bread, and a faint boozy sweetness. You can hear the quiet fizz of carbon dioxide escaping, a soft, almost meditative sound that makes the whole room feel alive. Once the fermentation finally wraps up, the wine isn't rushed into bottles. Instead, it's left to rest, sometimes for just a few months, other times for several years. This aging process might take place in oak barrels, lending richness and complexity, or in stainless steel tanks, preserving a crisp and bright profile. As the wine sits, fine sediments settle to the bottom and the flavors mellow, weave together, and smooth out. In some cases, the winemaker will blend different batches to create the exact taste they're aiming for. It's a delicate balance between science and artistry, and it's here that much of a winery's signature style is truly born. Before a single drop of wine makes its way into a bottle, it has to pass a final round of scrutiny. This is where the lab takes over, running checks on alcohol content to make sure it's exactly where it should be, inspecting the clarity so there's no unwanted cloudiness, and putting aroma and flavor under a careful nose and palate. Every element is assessed with the same seriousness you'd expect from a luxury watchmaker examining gears. One tiny flaw, and the whole batch waits until it's fixed. Only when everything hits the winery's gold standard does it move forward. Once it's cleared for release, the real show begins. The wine flows into high-speed filling machines that portion out the exact volume for each bottle with surgical precision. The process is quick, but there's no rushing the care. Every movement is designed to avoid unnecessary splashing or oxygen sneaking in, because even the smallest bit could dull the flavor. Caps or corks are pressed in, labels are placed perfectly straight, and the bottles slide neatly into their boxes like pieces in a puzzle. From there, they're loaded onto trucks, headed for warehouses, restaurants, and maybe, just maybe, the table where you'll be pulling that cork and taking the first sip. So the next time you pour yourself a glass, remember, It's not just fermented grape juice in there. It's the end result of a year's worth of farming, weeks of careful processing, months of patient aging, and countless tiny decisions aimed at making it just right. If you've got a favorite wine, drop it in the comments. I'm curious who's into bold reds, who's into crisp whites, and who's just here for the sparkling. And if you know someone who'd love to see exactly how their drink is made, share this with them. Cheers.